Linda found herself sitting across from Marcus at their old favorite restaurant, a place that had witnessed countless college escapades and heartfelt conversations years ago. As they exchanged stories and laughed over shared memories, a pang of nostalgia washed over her. The connection between them was palpable, stirring feelings of excitement and apprehension. What was supposed to be a casual catch-up dinner turned into something far more profound. A rekindling of a friendship she hadn't realized she'd missed so deeply. Marcus, ever the charismatic and attentive listener, seemed to understand her in ways her husband, Derek, hadn't in years. Marcus's life as a successful author was a stark contrast to Linda's suburban routine. His stories of travel and adventure awakened a part of her that had long been subdued by the monotony of her daily life and the growing emotional distance in her marriage. Derek, Linda's husband, had always been reserved. His affections, once warm and reassuring, now felt masked by a need for control that Linda had slowly come to resent. Lately, his caring nature seemed overshadowed by suspicion. Casual glances at her phone, subtle checks on her whereabouts, and questions that felt more like interrogations. Linda couldn't help but wonder if Derek's love was contingent on her remaining the predictable spouse he wanted her to be. The control had extended beyond their relationship, seeping into her sense of self. She felt like a fixture in her own home rather than a partner. As the night wore on, Linda and Marcus found themselves closing down the restaurant, lost in conversation. There was an ease between them, a familiarity that felt both comforting and exhilarating. When Marcus invited her to continue their chat at his place, promising a cup of his infamous late-night coffee and a chance to see his new book collection, Linda hesitated. The invitation was innocent enough, yet it sparked a thrill in her that she hadn't expected. Driving to Marcus's apartment, Linda felt a mix of guilt and defiance. She knew Derek would disapprove, but the thought of going home to another silent evening filled her with dread. With Marcus, she could be herself, laugh freely, speak her mind, and feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. This night, she told herself, was about reclaiming a piece of her identity that she had neglected. It wasn't about betraying Derek, but the distinction was murky, complicated by the emotions Marcus's presence stirred within her. Marcus's apartment was warm and inviting, filled with books and artifacts from his travels. They talked for hours, Marcus sharing stories behind each item, drawing Linda into his world. As the night deepened, so did their conversation, turning to more personal subjects, their aspirations, fears, and the inevitable what-ifs that accompanied their current life choices. Linda found herself sharing more than she had intended. She spoke of her loneliness, the emotional disconnect with Derek, and how she felt more like a fixture in her own home than a partner. Marcus listened, offering the kind of empathy and understanding she had been craving. There was no judgment, only the warmth of genuine concern. As the clock ticked toward morning, the realization of what she was doing began to sink in. Physically, she was just talking and sharing coffee, but emotionally, she was venturing into dangerous territory. The line between emotional fidelity and betrayal was becoming blurred. Linda knew that staying the night, even without any physical infidelity, would be a breach of trust if Derek ever found out. But as she looked around at Marcus's cozy living room, listened to the soft music playing in the background, and felt the warmth from the fireplace, she made a decision. Tonight, she would stay, not out of spite for Derek or any misguided hope for romance with Marcus, but for herself, to feel alive, appreciated, and understood, even if just for a night. Morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow that illuminated the room. Linda stirred, the comfort of the deep conversation from the night before still wrapped around her like a warm blanket. But as consciousness took hold, so did reality. Her phone buzzed insistently on the nightstand, a sharp contrast to the peaceful ambiance of Marcus's apartment. The screen lit up to reveal a cascade of messages from Derek, each one more frantic and accusatory than the last. "Where are you? Why aren't you answering? What's going on, Linda?" The progression of his texts painted a picture of a night filled with worry, doubt, and anger. Linda winced as she scrolled through them, each word a weight added to her already heavy heart. Driving back home, Linda's mind raced as she rehearsed what she would say to Derek. How could she explain the unexplainable? That her night away wasn't about infidelity, but about seeking a connection, a semblance of understanding that she felt was missing at home. Stepping inside, she found Derek in the living room, his posture tense, his expression a mix of relief and anger. The air was thick with unsaid words, the distance between them more profound than the physical space. "I stayed with a friend last night because I needed some space to think," Linda began, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Derek's face hardened as he pulled out his phone, showing her a map with a glaring red line marking her movements from the previous evening. "You call sitting in Marcus's apartment all night thinking?" he challenged, his voice rising in anger. The confrontation escalated, with hurt feelings on both sides threatening to overshadow the deeper issues at play. As the dust settled, Linda and Derek found themselves at a crossroads. The emotional fallout was clear. Their marriage had been unraveling not just this night, but over months and years of neglect and miscommunication. "I think we need help, Derek," Linda said softly. "We can't do this on our own." Derek nodded slowly, the resistance in his posture easing. "Maybe you're right. Maybe that's what it takes." The decision to seek counseling marked the first step toward a possible reconciliation, or at least a mutual understanding of where they stood. Through weeks of counseling, Linda and Derek learned to peel back the layers of their relationship, confronting uncomfortable truths and unpacking years of neglected communication. They tackled everything from everyday communication breakdowns to deeper issues of trust and respect. They began setting aside time each evening to share details of their day, deliberate moments where they could connect without distractions. Derek made an effort to leave work at a reasonable hour, prioritizing their time together over late nights at the office. Linda, in turn, ensured he felt appreciated at home, making sure he knew his efforts didn't go unnoticed. As the months passed, Linda and Derek found themselves rebuilding not just their relationship, but also their individual selves. They learned to communicate more openly, to listen deeply, and to turn toward each other instead of retreating into silence. One evening, as they sat in their backyard watching the sunset, Derek reached for Linda's hand. "I used to think love was about grand gestures," he said reflectively. "But I've realized it's actually about being willing to turn the page together when things get tough." Linda smiled, squeezing his hand. "I agree. It's about growing together, about building something stronger from the broken pieces.